crazy story time about how my sister and I found out that we were hooking up with the same guy. So I was a freshman, my sister was a sophomore, and there was this really cute guy in her grade that I liked. But I could never find a way to talk to him because we weren't in the same grade and had none of the same classes. And my sister and I were not close at all. Like, we didn't tell each other shit, we didn't really talk to each other or anything. So by that being said, we never told each other about the boys that we liked. We just didn't have that bond. Well, track season came around. So they called all the people down who wanted to do track, and I saw him walk past my classroom window, so I decided to go too. So I signed up for track, and him and I started to talk a little bit. We exchanged numbers, and he was popular, I wasn't, so he didn't want to be seen with me. So after attendance, we would go to this graveyard right by the track and hook up. Well, the next day we had a meet in our school. So him and I went to the graveyard, hooked up, and that's when it started getting crazy like for part 2.
After finding everything out, I told my aunt to please keep it a secret. I can't look at my sister in the eyes, let alone tell her I know the truth. After avoiding her for a week, I came to her house and I told her she needs to sit down because we need to talk. I told her about the DNA test and meeting up with my aunt, and that's when she confessed. She told me how she got very drunk at a party and slept with one of the jerks who does nothing but weed every day. She told me how her mom used to convince her father to try to talk her out of keeping the baby, and they were constantly fighting. When I was born, they told her on the spot that she brought shame upon the family and they will not help raise this baby in any way. After a couple of months of loaning from her friends and juggling between working, she decided to run away. She took us to the mall to keep us warm and we started crying. That's when the couple who adopted us now came to our aid. My sister jumped on the opportunity and came up with the story and an alias. She knew all along that her parents were looking for her. She wrote them a letter saying she's never coming back and they should stop looking. 2 years later, her father went on a quest to find her secretly. He met me a few times and I knew him as one of my sister's old friends from the park. He helped us a few times and apparently they would meet up once every 2 months secretly. I'm glad I got to know him at least before he passed away.
Part 2 about the 2-year-old boy who lost his life at the Pittsburgh Zoo. So like I said, she had dropped her child into the exhibit and by that time the dogs already got to him. As soon as this happened, visitors went and told the employees. Shortly after, zookeepers were able to call off several of the dogs and they had immediately went back into the building. 3 more were eventually drawn from the child, but the last dog was very aggressive and the police had to shoot the animal. The father soon arrived at the scene, and after the mother and father were taken to the hospital for immediate trauma therapy. Since the exhibit opened in 2006, USDA had conducted over 35 inspections on that exhibit, and none of those times did they decide that it was unsafe. And this situation happened in 2012. Parents decided to sue the zoo in May of 2013. In court, the mother had argued that the zoo had failed miserably to prevent the attack. And this is what the zoo said. This was caused because of the mother's negligence and carelessness. I'm going to tell you guys my opinion real quick. I think it's the mother's fault. What do you guys think?
Do you style your hair the same way every day? Well, there's an urban legend about a woman who always wore her hair in a bun, but for her this habit would lead to something terrifying. This woman loved wearing her hair in a bun, but she might have taken it a bit too far. She didn't want to style her hair differently or even take out her bun to clean her hair. Whenever she took a shower, she would just wear a shower cap to make sure the water didn't mess up her bun. At night, she would sleep with a towel around her hair so the bun didn't move. After a while, she had to put hairspray in it to mask the smell. Then her scalp started feeling itchy, so she would put more hairspray in it. Even when the itching got intense, she just applied more hairspray. But her husband finally found out about how bad the situation had gotten when he woke up one day and his wife was still asleep. He tried to wake her up, but she wouldn't move. She had died in the middle of the night. The husband called the police, fearing that something unusual might have happened. But when her body was examined, they finally took out her bun. Inside her hair, they found something terrifying. They found a huge spider had gotten into her hair, made a nest, and laid eggs. When the baby spiders hatched, they bit through her skull and ate her brain.
This is part 2 story time about how my parents found out I was gay. This story is anonymous and is from a boy's perspective. So I got to a point where I definitely wanted to tell my parents I was gay, but honestly, the thought of it totally freaked me out and I changed my mind. But then my boyfriend started to feel like I was ashamed of him. I didn't want him to feel like that anymore, so I told my parents about this. I was going to tell my parents, but just not when he wanted me to. So one morning from school, my boyfriend came to pick me up with Starbucks. He knocked on the door and my dad opened it. He goes, "Hi, is Chris here?" which is my name. He says, "Yes, and who are you?" He says, "I'm William, Chris's boyfriend." My dad tells him to come inside and he calls me downstairs. So once I come downstairs and I see him, my jaw dropped. He says, "Are you gay?" Then William goes, "You didn't tell him?" I said, "I'm so sorry, I meant to." My dad goes, "Spent all this time raising you just so you could turn into a FAG?" Then my dad throws me out the house. William later understood how I felt. My mom later divorced him and brought me back home.
God doesn't make mistakes. Hush your mouth. I've made plenty of mistakes. You ever see a porcupine? Can't eat it, can't hug it. It's ugly, sticky, shitting all over the place. Mistake. What about quicksand? Sand, you can drown it. You can drown dry. You think God meant to make quicksand? Mistake.
Part 1 story time about my toxic best friend. So around my freshman year of high school, I met this girl, and we're going to name her Jen. We became best friends within like 5 seconds of knowing each other. We would always hang out, text, eat lunch together. We were just very close. But as time went on, I noticed she started to get extremely jealous anytime she saw me talking to anyone else. Like, if she saw me talking to someone in the halls, she would literally stop talking to me for a whole week straight. And this happened pretty often, but I was still friends with her. So one day, this new girl comes to school, and me and Jen decide to be friends with her. And we're going to name her Sadie. So Sadie, Jen, and I decided to make a group chat together, which we'd all talk and catch up in. But there was this one day where Jen was on summer vacation, and so I texted the group chat to see if Sadie wanted to hang out. I said, "Hey Sadie, want to hang out tonight? Sorry you can't be here, Jen." Jen types in the group chat, "You guys can't hang out." Like for part 2. Story time about how I found out my mom faked her death so she wouldn't have to be our parent anymore. So it was me and my brother Jeremy, and after I turned about 5, my mom started complaining that she was getting sick and couldn't go back to work. She was always bedridden, and she was always having people make food for us, and she was just never really attentive like that. So here and there, she would have this random black car come pull up to the house, and she always told us that she was going to appointments. So that's what we believed. She would come back and just keep us posted and say that the doctor gave her a prescription and that she should be fine. As the years went on, me and my brother Jeremy, who was younger than me, he was 12 and I was 15 at this time, we just started taking care of her for the rest of our lives. We barely had a social life or really any social skills or normal high school experience because we felt like our mom could die any second. And she would always tell us, "Don't you notice how much weight I'm losing?" Because the clothes that she would wear were really big. So one morning, that same black car came and got her, and she went to the hospital, and she never came back. Like for part 2.
Did some research, and we found out that someone was basically trying to do evil to me and harm me. Like, I appreciate you counting me in. I personally, I don't want to be voodooed, but thank you. Thankfully, though, we had some cameras in the house, so we were about to see who was behind this. This is the best part. We checked the cameras, and the 3 people that I saw walk out of my room, they were strangers. My parents didn't invite them. They didn't know them. So what my dad did was he screenshotted the footage and then he posted it on Facebook and he was like, "Does anyone know who this is?" So we ended up finding them, contacting them, whatever. And we found out they work for this company that does witch stuff. And someone was paying them to do all of this witchery stuff on me. No, I'm fine. What about you? So we asked them, what is behind all of this? What magic are you trying to do? Who